this video is different from my usual ones. Normally I would speak about a specific area of special needs and ways that we can support it. This time I want to speak about the current green paper on special educational needs. It's out for consultation at the moment, and the consultation process has been extended to the 22nd of July. Personally, I feel that if we're going to then talk about whether we like or agree with, disagree with policy and guidance that is made, we need to have had our say. If we haven't bothered to go for the consultation, go through that process and have our say, then it makes it much harder to then comment and reflect on what's being done. So I want to have that out there. Basically, to do this, all you need to do is type into your search engine green paper on SEND, and it will come up to the right government website, and then all the links are there. You can just go for it. It's worth reading the green paper. There's a lot of detail there, and there are good things in there. I'm not saying this is a bad paper, but there are certain aspects that I think need to have an input from people who are actually working in schools or with people who are SENCOs, as I do, or I work a lot with TAs who are doing their childhood and education degree in readiness to hopefully become teachers. So basically the actual consultation bit online that you do, it's very clear. It indicates all the way through which bits of the green paper they refer to, so you can have the green paper open on one half of your screen and the consultation document on the other, and you can read through the relevant bits. And then some of it is about simply ticking agree, disagree, slightly agree, all that sort of stuff. But then there's always space for a comment. The comments allow you up to 250 words for each comment, and at the end there's a chance to say anything that you didn't get a chance to say through the consultation document as they present it to you. My particular bit that I want to talk about is the NASENCO Award, the National Award for Special Educational Needs Coordinators. What they're proposing in the Green Paper is that this is reduced to an NPQ, National Professional Qualification. And there are several reasons I have concerns over this. One of them is that in countries that are particularly good at education, get good results across the board, countries like Finland, for example, they have high levels of qualifications expected for teachers. They expect teachers to be well qualified. That's a good thing, okay? If you take it down from a master's level, my concern is what message is that giving out about special educational needs and its import. The Green Paper is all about levelling up, ensuring that there aren't postcode lottery ideas with special needs. That we know that in some places, pretty much everywhere, there's a long waiting list for CAMS, but we also know that in some places that waiting list is a lot longer than others. I know of SENCOs who have got up to 3 years waiting times to get a child for child and adolescent mental health referrals, which is a lot. So I agree that we do need to have some consistency, but a few things concern me. One is they talk about levelling it up and putting money in, but they don't necessarily talk about training the practitioners. It's all very well saying we're going to have more access to practitioners, but they need to be trained up in the first place, and that is a lengthy process. So that's a part of it. But with the NASENCO, if we take it down to an NPQ, then firstly there's that, as I say, that's devaluing it. It's that sort of making special needs less important, in my mind. That's how I see it. This is all my own opinion. The other thing is I've been an assessor and a tutor for both NPQs and for the NASENCO, so I do know the difference between them. And the level of depth and breadth that you have in the NASENCO course is what is required to tool you up to be a SENCO. And that being a special needs coordinator is a tough job. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It requires a wide skill base and a lot of knowledge. And that knowledge is not just about the actual needs themselves, it's about the legislation and guidance. Now, what the SENCO award gives us. Okay, I'll go through it. So you have three. The one I do is through Real Group. You have 3 learning logs, and in those learning logs you look at things like pupil voice, you look at legislation, guidance, a bit of project work, and you have to do some action research, some discussion and a little bit of inquiry, which is important. You look at parental voice, you look at working with external agencies, you look at interpreting what you see in professional reports and using that to promote and develop the provision for special educational needs within your setting. Those are just some of the areas you look at. You look at your leadership skills. Leadership is a big part of being a SENCO, a really big part. And it's a complicated one because you've got all these different stakeholders. You have the child at the centre. You have their parents thinking about the Lamb inquiry and the importance of parental involvement. You have the teachers. You have the senior leadership team. You have the governors. You have all of these stakeholders, and you need to be able to work appropriately. You need to appreciate that some parents don't get all the jargon that we use, so you need to be able to use the language appropriately. You need to have that sensitivity when you are explaining to a parent that their child has a learning need. That requires a strong leadership and the right sort of approach. All of that is covered by the course. There are 3 applied practice tasks. One of them is about reviewing your policy and information report and comparing it to that of another setting. So by doing this particular qualification, you have to go into another setting and see practice elsewhere. One of the problems in education is we are quite often so overworked that we focus in on one particular area and don't see that wider picture. That wider picture is really important for development. So the placement is really important. In that placement you compare policy and practice. You look at whether the policy and the practice match. You look at the ethos of the school. All of these things matter, and it's used not just for getting to know what it is, but to then develop and improve the practice in your own setting, and to help you as a SENCO, especially a new SENCO to post, to know how to actually write a good policy and information report. There's another one that's on data management. So understanding all the processes by which you not only collect data, but you're able to draw from it, analyse it, work out where the needs are, what the provision needs to be as a whole school level, but also individual level. So you look at how do we provide for individual students. Really important. So that's another aspect of it. Then there's one where you review the practice in your school, as in the provisions that you make. So you look at provision mapping, you look at what external agencies you use, what are the skills of your workforce. These skills, understanding that, auditing that, means that it's something you have to do as a SENCO, and it gives you the skill base to do that and the knowledge base to do it. Then there are 4 essays, master's level essays. Now, the first one is about legislation and guidance regarding inclusion, but not just the general, oh yes, I've read the code of practice, but how is that applied to my setting? What does that mean for us? Are we in line? What could we do to adjust it? Are we developing it? Are we doing what we are legally obliged to do? But also, what is the guidance? What is the research? What should we be doing as SENCOs to get the best provision within our school, and linking that to the literature, the policy, the guidance, the legislation? The second essay is a comparative study. So you're going back to that placement school I talked about before, and you're looking at an area of special needs. It could be quality first teaching, deployment of TAs, it could be a specific special needs, so it could be looking at autism and how it's identified, how it's supported, or whatever area the student, the SENCO wants to explore. Now, that means they have a discussion normally with their senior leadership team. They have an overview of the school, what is needed to develop special needs in our setting. They see it in another setting, then they bring back that expertise. Obviously, being master's level, there's a lot of literature review and so on. So they're seeing what the research says, what the policy, what the guidance, what the school does, what does our school do. How can we then implement next steps and develop our practice further. So that's the second essay. The third essay is either a piece of project work or a case study. So if it's a case study, you're not only looking at an area of need and all the literature and research about that, but you're looking at how effective is this provision that we are doing, how effective is this intervention, and what other interventions could we have chosen, why have we rejected them in favour of this one, what were the outcomes, and so on. And it follows the assess, plan, do, review process really well that's set out in the current code of practice. The other option is to do a piece of project work, and some people take it as a chance to do some CPD for their teachers, running a training session and then presenting the PowerPoint presentation for that session with notes and discussion at master's level, supported by literature, all the rest of it, with all the academic side of it. But the important thing is it's a detailed bit of research that is applied research, it's action research, looking at what is happening in my setting, how is it going well, how can I make it even better. Such an important part of the SENCO job, and tooling us up. Also, if it's done as a piece of training, it's also raising the profile of the SENCO within the school because of the project they've undertaken. And then finally, there's a reflection on the whole course, and that includes looking at your leadership skills, the skills and knowledge required to be a special needs coordinator, and how you've developed and grown through the course. Personally, I think it's an excellent qualification. What I've seen of NPQs, and as I say, I've taught on a few different ones, they just don't have that depth and breadth that is required to make somebody a better SENCO. So I've put my point of view, as you can imagine. I've completed the consultation process and I've put my point of view on several areas, but on this most strongly all the way through. I feel personally very strongly that we need to keep the profile and import of special educational needs high and understood, and therefore we have to give it that level. That master's qualification has been superb for developing the SENCOs in our school and making them as good as they can be. And what I'm hoping is enough of you will feel the same, and we'll get that message across to government, and hopefully this qualification will remain, because I'd really like it to. Okay, thank you for listening.